Hi, welcome to another Monday Mindset Moment. Short trainings that can get you on your way in your parenting world, moving towards more resilience, more connection, and more respect and appreciation as you build lifelong relationships with your kids. And we always want to have that love that we have in our hearts between parents and children flowing more freely so that we can enjoy our time together and daily life can become even more enjoyable. I've been lately sharing with folks, we often have a lot of stigma around what happens to your life after you have children. And I say, you know what? It's not that you don't have a life or it's ended. It's actually more of a meaningful life upgrade. And it's actually an opportunity for us as adults who sometimes feel like we're fully cooked or done to continue learning and growing. And boy, do kids bring to attention what we need to learn and where we need to grow. Welcome, glad you're here. Say hello in the chat if you're on Facebook or in Zoom, so I know that you're here. I'd love to get a little roll call. We've got Ryan. Oh, hi, welcome back, Ryan, here on Zoom and waiting to see who says hello on Facebook. All right, so please talk to me. Please talk to me. Earning your child's trust, earning your child's confidence, getting that line of communication flowing. Oftentimes, the people who are drawn to this topic have children that are 6 or older, even tweens and teens, but this can happen even early on where you feel like your kid is shutting down. Your child is turning away from you instead of towards you when things get hard, and maybe even keeping secrets from you or not disclosing, things that you would love to be helpful about, love to support them in. So when this is happening, oftentimes it sets off a little alarm and we wonder, my goodness, like what is the barrier here between my child's experience and them wanting to communicate with me? If that's something that you've been experiencing, I just want you to know that this is a temporary state. This does not predict the outcome of your relationship with your child. If this is something that you are experiencing, you could just put me in the chat, just so you know, yeah, you're here, like where you're feeling some kind of rift or pull, or you're concerned about that. For me, like even before I became a preschool teacher and a step parent, I had a lot of concerns about this because I had just experienced 2 years of non-communication between myself and my main parent figure, which is my mom, because the road that we headed down did not have these 3 ingredients I'm going to share with you today. And so when things got really tough, we had a rift and we didn't speak for a couple of years. And it really concerned me that happened. And I know that for many of you don't want that to happen in your relationships. But during that time is when I discovered and just decided I want to work with children and parents and families, and got into the classroom and started to open lines of communication and really explore, like, what does it take to create that sense of mutual trust and respect that can be the foundation that you build on and continue to allow the relationship to grow and flourish as the kids get older and older. So that when you have a tough inflection point, like my mom and I did, you end up turning towards each other, working it through. We have this basis of that mutual respect and trust to navigate the tough times with. So yeah, if you're here for it, I'm so glad. Here are the 3 tips. You ready? Here we go. And of course, I have hundreds of ideas about this. This is like one of the key outcomes of all the work that I do, whether it's in schools or with private clients or in my year-long group program. This is one of the outcomes that we all are interested in, whether we're teachers, caregivers, co-parents, parents, etc. Okay. All right. So the first one, and I want you to really consider this one and how far-reaching it can be if you get down with this one, is that as much as possible, we want our children to experience integrity from us. And when I say integrity, I mean that what we say and what we do match up. What we ask of them, we also ask of ourselves. How we handle ourselves, our stress, is how we are also asking them to handle their stress, not a lopsided, out of balance version of that. So where it can go sideways and where kids can start to kind of side eye us and not be sure if we're really a source of guidance, a source of support, a reliable, resource for brainstorming solutions, for example, is if they experience from us that what we tell them is not the same as what we show them. What we say is not the same as what we do. And if we're especially if we're holding them to a higher expectation than we hold ourselves, we've got some work to do. Okay. Now, this is not to call everybody out on bad behavior, okay? This is something that we all tend to do. And I've seen it over and over again with the hundreds of families I've worked with over the last 20 years that we don't even know we're doing it. And it's the same, teachers do this too. And we have to build in this awareness of, oh no, I'm doing that thing again. So here's how it can sound. Here's a classic. Child is upset, you're upset, and you want them to take some breaths. So you say, calm down, take some breaths. Now your words are maybe sharing something, helpful, right? We want to calm down here. We want to take some breaths. Maybe some tools come in, but your tone and what you're doing in that moment, which is telling them what to do, is communicating a different message. And we've all been there. Okay. Let me know if you've been there. I've been there. You might put it into the chat or the comments here or on Facebook or on YouTube and the recording. Just say, I've been there. Yes, Vanessa, I know what you're talking about. And when we catch these moments more and more, just that inflection of awareness of like, I'm not modeling the behavior I seek. This is one of my core tenets that I love to share with parents that has had the huge impact in my teaching career and also my parenting career, my parenting experience. Model the behavior you seek. Kids can learn up to like between 10 and 100 times more by what you show them, demonstrate to them, and do on a consistent basis than what you tell them to do or you say that they should be doing or how they should be showing up, right? So showing and modeling, huge. Now, it's because we're wired to be social learners. And so like kids will pick up phrases like this, right? Like you'll have one child came to class and he stubbed his toe and he goes, gosh, darn it all. And he's like 2.5. So I was like, that's funny coming out of a 2.5-year-old's mouth. So I went to the parents and asked, has there been somebody new in the environment that maybe uses the phrase, gosh, darn it all? They said, oh yeah, grandpa was here for the weekend. With just impressions of the grandfather, maybe dropping something, making a mistake, having a mild injury and going, gosh, darn it all. Just being around this human for a couple of days, this child now is applying this phrase to a scenario it's in its likeness, right? Stubbing your toe, that hurts. Gosh darn it all. We are social learners. And we also need direct instruction where we break things down into steps and we give detailed explanations. And that's where the teaching and guidance and scaffolding kind of comes in. But more importantly, how we show up, what we do, what we show is going to have that greater impact, especially on a consistent basis. So if what you're seeking is that mutual trust and respect where communication can flow, then make sure you're showing up in a way that's inviting to communication and that is modeling how you would like your child to show up. So on 2 levels, this works. First of all, they just have more of a sense of what I see is what I get. What I'm being asked to do, I'm being shown a model of how to do it. This person actually knows the way to get there because they're showing me that they already know how to do that. That they know how to find their calm. They know how to solve a problem. They know how to brainstorm for solutions because they do it. They do it in front of me and they do it with me. I trust this source of comfort. I trust the source of inspiration. I trust this thought partner to help me figure out things and give me some guidance, right? I trust this person. That opens up that conversation, right? And if you show these tools of communication, then also you get to benefit from the fact that you're using them and they're in the environment and the kids will absorb that from you as well. So things like noticing when you're flooded is a very common thing in even couples counseling. You say, okay, if either person is flooded, meaning your lid is half or all the way off, or in other words, your stress level has gotten to the point where you're not thinking clearly, you're not able to kind of weigh things fairly. Maybe you're starting to use language like always or never. That's flooding. And you can feel physiological changes too, like maybe flushing in the cheeks or like a pit in your stomach, right? Something shifts in that connection, that communication, and you're feeling it. Then it's a good time to do a little timeout for at least 20 minutes so that you can reset the conversation and reset your nervous systems and come back more resourced with those lids on, able to think things through, pull on past experiences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Consider the other person's perspective. So imagine just taking that one piece and modeling it for your kids over and over and over again. That when things get to a place where lids are off, things are heated, you take that time and you put the lids back on, come back and have a more productive conversation. If you show that to them, that you're willing to do that on your side, or that you do that with the other children and or adults in their environment, it's something they can internalize, and they will trust that they can have a safe conversation with you. Because if it gets too escalated, something is done about it and care is given, and time and attention is and space, if needed, is given, and then coming back also happens. Builds so much trust. So the first one's having that integrity, which I think the best way to think of it is model the behavior you seek. And that way what you're asking for is what you're showing. And then you also will just be building in a lot of guidance around how we talk to each other, how we treat each other, how we solve problems together, so that you can become that resource. Boom, we could just mic drop there, right? Go off, try that one, and apply it across all situations over time, and you'll see a huge impact on your relationship and the amount of trust that flows between yourself and your child. Now, if anybody has a question or a takeaway, pop it in the chat now. This is your chance. We only have a few more minutes. I'm going to roll through my last 2 tips. But if you're in the replay, just put replay, tag me in it at Vanessa Callahan, or if you're on YouTube, just write it in. And I actually come back and I look at comments and I answer questions. And I'd love to hear takeaways too. Something that stood out to you. A takeaway is something that you want to take away, you don't want to forget, that you just heard. Because listening is a lot different than implementing, right? And if you're one of those people who knows that you need to have a full-on one-on-one conversation and or a program to kind of support you, reach out to me. We have a couple of last spots left in our July cohort. Like, you would be squeaking in, but we could fit you in. So check that out with me if you'd like. You can also email raisingourresilience@gmail.com. Okay, tip number 2, tip number 3. Here we go. So the second one is piggybacking off of this modeling, right? The behavior you seek. It's really important that you let children know that you are also figuring things out, that you are also learning and growing, that you are also making mistakes and figuring out how to fix them, that you are not done growing. And the reason why is because if you are done growing, then a lot of times that's really intimidating. Kids won't necessarily want to approach you with their problems because it's embarrassing to them because you're not also struggling. How many of you know what I mean? Like, you might have a harder time really giving the full story, the messy parts, the hard parts, the full emotion to somebody who's always has it together, always stoic, always on top of things. It's almost like you feel the sense of this person won't be able to relate. We don't want to be that intimidating figure in our kids' lives. We do want to be a source of authority and wisdom because we have more life experience and we have perspective and our unique talents and skills to lend. But we don't want to give this impression that I'm done and you should already be done too. Kids will absolutely try to rise to the level of the adults around in their environment. I don't know if you've ever seen a kid get very frustrated trying to draw something and they can't draw as well as you, and then they give up on drawing for a while. This is a natural thing that kids will do. So if instead we show at least one area of our life where we're still learning, we're still growing, we're kind of a beginner, we're trying things, we're discovering, we're staying curious, we're making mistakes, we're learning from our mistakes. I still remember the moment when I realized that adults weren't done, that they continue to grow and change. And I think it was when an elementary teacher came back with a different haircut and said she was going to take classes from a teacher in the summer. And I said, my teacher has a teacher and her hair can change? Like, it just made me realize that we're not static beings. And it's really important that the kids know that. Now, that's not the same as dumping all of our worries and troubles on them and having no filter whatsoever. Like, we're not trying to turn our children into our therapists, okay? They're not responsible for our feelings and our problems, right? But you can still give them examples of times in the past or times in the present or times in the future where you anticipate that you're going to need to lean in, be vulnerable, grow, take some risks, try some new things. This is really healthy for the kids to see. And I'm sure you'll be building in potentially some good examples of how to cope with some of the feelings that come up. And that's also very helpful. So we've got integrity, we've got vulnerability. And the key for the integrity is model the behavior you seek. For the vulnerability, be a human being in development and growth, right? like an evolving human. Let them see that you are also still learning and growing. Okay. Last but not least, this is something that is a little nuanced, and I want to make a distinction here for you that might be useful to some folks who maybe haven't thought about this distinction before. And this is something that I spent a whole morning on in our three-day retreat that's coming up, all on motivation mastery, like intrinsic motivation techniques for our year-long clients and some guests, called the Motivation Mastery Weekend. I love this session. Everybody loves this session. It's the growth mindset session. So here's one takeaway I want you to have. Yes, part of building a positive relationship where kids will trust you and want to come to you and bring things to you is that they know that you see them in a positive way. You have a positive regard for them. And so we can, but the problem is, like, I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in 1980. And we had these like self-esteem protecting things like the ILAC tag, I am lovable and capable. And we talked a lot about protecting children's self-esteem because there wasn't enough work being done around that and social emotional wellness in general. So there's this big push of like, you know, be careful how you treat your kids because that's how they're going to treat themselves or how they're going to think about themselves. And we still need that. But here's a distinction. Praising a child, saying you're a good girl. Oh, you're so smart. Or just as simple, oh, good job, is not the same as praising things they do have control over. Now, when I'm saying and being specific, okay, we can give too much general praise and it can actually backfire. If kids want you to see them in that way, oh, I'm a good, smart girl or a good, smart boy, good, smart child or teenager, they may not bring problems to you because they don't want to give you information that would make you think otherwise of them. They did a stupid thing, but you keep saying they're smart. Well, they don't want to tell you that they did something stupid now because they're worried that now you're going to think that they're dumb. Not so smart, perhaps. They made a bad choice. Can they bring that to you when you always say, you're my good girl, you're my good boy? It's less attractive, right? To bring it to somebody who has a fixed idea of who we are, because and especially if that's the thing that they hinge a lot of their like love and approval on, like, oh, if they don't think I'm smart and good, then I may not get praised anymore, which means I may not be loved and appreciated and, you know, get access to all the things that are available when I'm loved and appreciated by my parent. So what's the remedy to this? Shift your praise. I would say be more specific and focus on things they have control and choice over. So instead of saying, oh, you're so smart, you might say something like, wow, you know, even when it's tough, I often see you putting in effort to try and figure it out or to put some work in there and see where it takes you. And you can say, you also use some smart strategies like having a study buddy, using a timer, whatever. Pointing out the things that they have influence over and that they have control over and choice over, and the choices that they're making, the decisions they're making, the efforts they're putting in, the energy, they're maybe something about them that is represented here, but it's connected to something they have influence over. Then it's their sense of how you see them is dynamic, and it's not the static good or smart, right? And it's something that if they go down this other path that's like a lesser choice, right? They did something dumb, they did something kind of silly, they did something kind of stupid, or even broke a rule or something bad, right? And had a bad outcome, then they can learn from it and come back without it tainting your idea of them. And as a matter of fact, it's the being willing to look at the problem, admit to the problem, solve the problem that you admire the most. When you start to praise effort and things they have control over and ways that they have navigated tough times, and maybe you do praise their strategies or their choices as being smart or good rather than them as a person, you've opened up a whole dialogue. Can you see how that could build some trust? If you've seen at least one thing today that stands out to you that could help build trust, that could help build confidence, whether it's the integrity, right? Modeling the behavior that you seek, the vulnerability of allowing them to see you being a human in progress, or if it's praising, I'll just make it simple, praising efforts, right? Praising efforts. Put the word trust into the chat. If you got one thing on that you think you could build your child's trust, and which of these stood out to you? Nice, Ryan. Okay. Was it more the integrity, the vulnerability, or the praising? Yeah. I'm just so curious. The praise. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Ryan says the praise piece. Good. Yeah. And it's funny how it stands out to different people at different times. Later, you might realize, oh, I'm modeling this thing and now my child's doing it. And you get to see it like a mirror back at you. I was like, oh, I can be a little critical. And then your child is being critical towards like maybe their mom or their partner, or, your partner or the co-parent, or to their sibling, or to a friend, or to a cousin, whatever, whomever. And you're like, oh my gosh, if they sound like me. So, and maybe later at some point, right, that one will stand out to you more, the integrity one of like modeling the behavior that you want to, that you seek, right? And maybe at another time, the vulnerability will be when you see them maybe really harsh on themselves for making a mistake, and they're just like, they don't come to you. And you're like, my gosh, maybe they don't believe that I understand what it's like to make a mistake. And you might bring in a vulnerable story. When I was a kid, I did something really dumb. I made a really silly mistake. I thought it would be a good idea to try to jump off the roof onto a trampoline. Well, guess where that led to? And it can even be with some humor, some levity, some like for self-forgiveness, some what I put my parents through kind of thing. And that invites the kids to say, well, I did something silly at school too. And like maybe it's a story that's similar, but not, exactly what they went through and what you'd like them to open up about. Okay, good work, you all. These are my tips for today. I'm really excited that I had a chance to share them with you. And may your conversations and your connections deepen and open more lines of sort of trust and that mutual respect, so that you can be there for your child and they can rely on you in ways that, you really crave in your relationships. Good job, Catalina and Ryan, for showing up on Zoom, and those of you on Facebook and YouTube. Lots of love to each and every one of you. If you haven't yet checked out the rest of the Facebook group, you can head over to the Raising a Resilience parent group over on Facebook. There's a lot of great videos up right now on these kinds of topics. And we'll see you next time for another Monday Mindset Moment. All right, lots of love. Take care for now.